So I want to tell you a bit now about my flexibility story. I had started to notice a lack of flexibility and below average flexibility in my early teenage years. Later, in my later teens, I started noticing some really painful upper back, neck, shoulder area spasms that would happen just randomly when I was turning my head or in the shower. I also was kind of a mediocre athlete growing up. I did a lot of stretching throughout these years as well as my later 20s, but it wasn't very effective. I started seeing specialists for my back and neck spasms in my mid-20s, and I started singing in my late 30s. I had what most people would call kind of a strained nasal type voice, and I found I was not able to open my throat, create a lot of hollow space for good resonance for singing. I took 2 years of voice classes, which helped, but problems with my voice tone were still there. During this class, I started noticing that I was actually hiking my shoulders on a rather permanent basis, maybe about an inch or so up from natural hanging point. I was able to correct this, and that started leading me onto a path of noticing tension in my body a lot more clearly and finding good ways to release it. I had what I'll call my first mini release at the age of 42 when I was doing a head clock stretch combined with lifting my soft palate, which is something you do for singing. And I found through some techniques from Alexander, where they have you sit and stand with as little tension as possible, as well as just slowly walking and noticing any tension that creeped up. This is when I started really finding how to release some of this tension that was building up. When I started doing some of these techniques, my body started making pop and crack sounds, even when I wasn't stretching. And they felt like there were these cascading tension releases where maybe one bit of tension got released in my neck, traveled down to my shoulders, into my spine. Around this time, I started developing some of the stretches that I use in sequential stretching. I started stretching for 3 hours or more on a daily basis because I could find that the longer I spent, the deeper I could get into some of this muscle tension. And I found I had so many layers of it. It took quite a bit of time to get through it all. As far as where I'm at now, the upper back and neck spasms decreased, and then they were eventually completely gone. My shoulder hiking is gone. Before I started this, if I tried to touch my toes without bending my knees, I could barely make it past my knee. Now I can go all the way down to my toes, although I usually don't go that deep because it's still pretty tight around there. I found I could spread my legs wider than I ever could be able to. And my vocal tone has been noticeably improved as well for singing. My goal in terms of flexibility is to get to what I call total muscle freedom, where all the muscle fibers of my body would be eventually just able to do their job and not be stuck in a tense state any longer.